take projection.
It's Friday morning, and you know what that means. It's time for another episode of the Alabama Slam podcast. I'm your host, Corey Hanna.
What's going on, guys? It's Patrick Akers.
And let's get a little housekeeping out of the way real quick before we jump into the happenings for the week. I want to shout out the Alabama Take. I'd kind of gotten out of the habit the last couple episodes of doing the stuff at the end of the episode. We're part of a podcast network with a group of friends. Taking It Down, this weekly podcast about pop culture stuff, TV, movies, etc., music. Check Your Shelf, an excellent book podcast by my wife, Jamie Hanna. Taking on Sports, name says it all, weekly sports podcast. And then we also have a podcast called We Are a Star War. It's myself and a couple of great friends of mine. So check everything out at thealabamatake.com. You can follow on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all that stuff. And then you can also follow our podcast at Alabama Slam Pod on Twitter and Instagram. And then we have a Facebook page as well. Be sure to search Alabama Slam Podcast and look for our logo. There's another Facebook page out there called Alabama Slam that started just a month or two ago about wrestling.
Boy, that's really got you hot.
Boy, it does.
I don't care, but that has...
I don't care ultimately, but like the fact that we have to go and now fucking differentiate every goddamn week, it's a little pain in the ass. So.
But did you tell the listeners that you actually commented on the guy's Facebook post?
I didn't, or did I? I don't remember. Maybe I did. Yeah. But somebody there's a wrestling group on Facebook called Birmingham Slam for like North Alabama wrestling discussion and stuff. And people went in there and posted like a couple 3 weeks ago, and I was like, hey, did you bother like searching that name in like Facebook pages to see if there was anything that existed?
Your comment was real snarky though. That's what got me about it.
Well, I was trying to be cool about it.
You could read the level of pissed offness that was in that comment.
Pistivity.
The person did not even like respond. They were just like, "Oh, okay," and that was it. And they just kept the name.
Whatever. God damn it.
Our logo's better than theirs anyway. So.
Yeah, our logo kicks ass. Shout out Chris James and Heavy Color. If y'all need any logos done, shout out our boy. But yeah, man, let's get into fucking wrestling. Obviously, to start off the week, Royal Rumble happened on Saturday night. I do want to read from Twitter real quick from TD Wood, a.k.a. the host of Taking on Sports, included in our network. My prompt for the week on Twitter was, what was your favorite moment from the Saturday Night Rumble event? TD says the obvious is the Bloodline stuff. And then he says the cool stuff was the Paul Ricochet spot, Lesnar / Gunther stare down, and Brock going nuts after Lashley eliminated him. The damage control / Becky stuff, and the end of the women's Rumble. And then his absolute fave was Asuka coming out in the Canna face. Is it Canna face paint? How do you say that? Give me Asuka / Bianca now.
Yeah, I think it's Kana, but I'm not sure.
Yeah,
it's her Japanese, what she did over there in Japan, her persona over there.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I can't really argue with any of that. The Lesnar Lashley angle doesn't interest me at all, but that's a good answer from him. And obviously, the Bloodline stuff is the major story, biggest story of the year, and not really what I expected to happen on Saturday night, but I'm not exactly mad at it either. I thought it was a great ending, emotional, a little unexpected. Jey Uso right now is maybe the MVP of this whole thing, even over Sammy, at least in the last week or two. His performance during the trial was fucking excellent. Give it up for Jey Uso.
Yeah, he has been doing just one hell of a job with this whole angle. And yeah, I mean, we would have to, I don't even know how far we would have to go back, and it's probably never. I don't know that I've ever seen a wrestling angle be so emotional. The territory that they went in at the end of the Royal Rumble and I posted about this on Twitter, a thread, because I think Roman Reigns' tribal chief character is probably the best wrestling character of all time, because it's based on two things that wrestling historically hasn't done, and that's nuance and restraint. If you ask somebody to, play a wrestling character or to give you a wrestling promo, they put a lot of bass in their voice. They get over the top with their antics. And even if you look at the top guys in wrestling history, guys like Stone Cold, guys like The Rock, Hulk Hogan, John Cena, each in their own way, they're all brash characters. They're all loud in each sort of respect. And Roman Reigns is none of that. Roman Reigns is still. Um, he's menacing, but in a quiet type of way, in a quiet kind of confidence. And there's just yeah, I mean, I don't know of a better word. There's a stillness about him, but then when the violence explodes, it explodes in such a raw and kind of uninhibited type of way, which is what you saw at the end of the Royal Rumble, right? Where he is just whooping the dog shit out of Sami Zayn and yelling. Um, so what has made this story so good, I think, is because it's been something that's incredibly different than anything we've ever seen before. And you talk about everybody just playing their part to perfection, from Paul Heyman to Jay Uso to Jimmy to Solo, and then of course the two big ones to Sami Zayn and Roman Reigns. And so when you give two guys and a group of guys like this who are so good, and you give them actually a good story to work with that's got a lot of meat to it, you get what we got at the end of the Royal Rumble, and it's a meme a little bit online, people being like, this is cinema, and posting like screenshots of the Rumble. But it really is. I mean, it's touching on character moments and emotional beats that are better, for the longest, have just been the domain of like movies and books and TV shows. And we're getting it in wrestling. And this is the best stuff that's on TV. Take it out of just pro wrestling history for at this point. We're touching on, is this some of the best stuff that has ever been on television, really? If you were just to steal it down, I've enjoyed this as much as I've enjoyed, like, I don't know, Breaking Bad or any of these like TV shows. And I don't think it's crazy to say that at this point.
It's interesting in the fact that I think I mentioned this last week. Between myself and Steven, I won't say his last name in case he doesn't want his last name said on air, but my wife's boss, shout out Steven, between him talking about wrestling to my wife and me and my son talking about wrestling to my wife, we kind of roped her in to watching part of the Rumble with us based on this storyline, right? So she watched part of it Friday night on SmackDown and kept an eye on the Rumble as well. But she was like, "This is pretty good with it." She's like, "Yeah, I like it better without the fighting." But you could pay attention to this story without watching the matches, and it would still be a really good story, right? I mean, you need part of it, obviously, for like the highlights for what happened in the trial of Sami Zayn. But just to pivot just a little bit, and then we'll come back to the Bloodline. In doing this, and her sitting down and watching part of it with me on Friday on SmackDown, and then on Saturday, she has gotten hooked on the Judgment Day story. She loves the Rhea Ripley angle and thinks that her look is badass, and that story is very captivating to her as well. So all that to say, tried to bring her in on the Bloodline angle, and then Judgment Day captured her attention as well. So we can switch back to that. We'll come back to the Judgment Day stuff in a little bit, but yeah, I mean, but I don't want to get too far into this just yet. But at some point, we need to discuss where do they go with this for the Elimination Chamber, and ultimately, it'll probably all still pay off at Mania, maybe, or not. I mean, where does it go? Because Cody won the Rumble, which we haven't even gotten to yet, so he'll get his shot at Roman. Where do they go?
So, the speculation has been that at Elimination Chamber, it's going to be Roman Reigns versus Sami in a one-on-one match for the titles. and that Jey Uso is probably going to re-enter and rejoin the Bloodline and screw Sami Zayn over. They beat them down in Montreal, which is where Kevin Owens will come in at Elimination Chamber and make the save, and then that sets up, you kind of shift the heat from Roman to Jey, and then you do the Usos versus Sami and KO at WrestleMania for the tag titles. I'm not going to say that that's a terrible idea. What I will say is I think that I don't think it's doing Jay's character any service to have him turn on Sami and rejoin Roman Reigns. Like
Yeah,
I think that that's the
it's the easy way out.
it's the easy way out. But here's the thing, in a perfect world, right? Like if WrestleMania was going to happen, and that's at the end of WrestleMania, that's just the end of the WWE, and there aren't any more stories to be told. It's like a series finale on television, right? We just boom, WrestleMania happens, no more WWE. Then they probably do Sami versus Roman, and Sami wins, and Jey screws over Roman, and that's it. Everything gets wrapped up in a nice little bow, right? The problem is wrestling is unique in that it's a never-ending story. And so maybe they're like, hey, if we fucking do this with Sami beating Roman and Jey turns and stuff, we don't know where we're going to go from here. We got to put on a show Monday. So, like, instead of shooting for like a 10 out of 10 and not knowing where we're going to go the next night, maybe it's okay if we do a 7.5 or an 8 ending, right, to WrestleMania, because then we can do an 8 on Monday and keep the story going. Does that kind of make sense? Like if it was just going to be, we're going to end this Bloodline story and that's going to be it, then yeah, I think it has to be Sami. Now, what I would say is you would hope that the people in that room who are, the writing staff of the WWE, they're being paid to be creative. And so you would hope that they would say, hey, Sami beating Roman at WrestleMania is the best thing to do. And Jey needs to finally get his revenge on Roman Reigns and have this bloodline angle collapse from the inside rather than having it being conquered from some outside force like what Cody Rhodes is. And then fuck it, we're creative enough. We'll figure out where to go from here. Seems like that's not going to be the case. Now, things could still change. I think the fact that you and I started this podcast and we are 12 minutes in and we haven't even talked about Cody Rhodes yet, who looks like he's going to be the guy going forward at WrestleMania. I think that says all that we need to say about what angle this story needs to go in and what direction it needs to go in.
Yeah. I've seen some dissent online from people that say it's kind of cheap for them to bring Cody in at number 30 in the 30 spot in the actual Rumble itself. And then obviously he gets the pin and then gets the rocket ship strapped to his back and automatically doesn't have to fight his way up really at all to get a shot at Roman. And it looks like they'll probably put it on him. I mean, I don't know. It's on the one hand, okay, cool, good for Cody, but it doesn't do much in terms of him moving the story forward that his dad never got the title and his brother never got the title and now he's going to get it, but he didn't really have to. I mean, he had work in the company before, sure, but he had a couple of matches with Seth Rollins last year and now he comes in for the last couple of minutes of the Rumble and he's got this shot at Roman.
Yeah, and let me say this about Sami and put a bow on Sami before I move over to Cody, because it might get a little bit negative when I start talking about Cody, and I don't mean it to. So let me just say this about Sami. I've seen a lot of people online be like, oh, Sami Zayn can't be the face of the company. And I would just like somebody to explain to me in specific detail why they think that that's not the case. Because I've listened to so many old school wrestlers. You hear all these guys talk about, oh, what's the most important thing about wrestling? It's about putting asses in seats. It's about making people feel stuff. It's about moving merchandise, moving ticket sales. Sami does all that stuff.
They chant Sami Uso every fucking week he's on TV. The crowd chanted, fuck you, Roman, during the Rumble the other day.
Not only that, the Rumble main event starts and you have Roman Reigns and Kevin Owens in the ring. And once the bell rings, what's the first thing that the crowd starts chanting in San Antonio? They start chanting Sami Zayn's name.
Yeah.
So if you're going to tell me that this guy can't be the face of the company, essentially what you're telling me is that there are things that fall outside the scope of the wrestling narrative in the wrestling TV show that we don't think this guy can do, or that this guy's not can't be the face of, or can't do as well as what Cody Rhodes does. And so what you're basically telling me, and what you're telling the fans, is it doesn't really matter who you get behind. You could get behind anybody. We have our top guys, our 2 or 3 guys that are going to be the tops of this company. And there's a glass ceiling in WWE, and some guys just won't break it. It don't matter how much you get behind them. It's not going to happen.
Yeah. I'm not mad that they want to put the title on Cody. Cody is a great performer. Is he the best wrestler in the world? No. But he cuts a fuck out of a promo. Like, he's one of the best on the mic, if you ask me. But, like, I just feel like I don't know. I feel like they're preemptively putting it on him to make him happy. And it kind of pisses me off. It's like you said, like, they don't trust the fans. I mean, what more evidence do you need, like you said, than the fucking crowd chanting Sammy Uso? Or, like, the whole thing that even the word Usi became a thing.
Right. What's his doing?
Is Sami Zayn's doing. Like, what more do you fucking need, you know?
And that's the thing. Like, this is not an anti-Cody thing by any stretch. Now, I'll get to some complaints I have about Cody and why he kind of doesn't do it for me, and why I'm sort of getting bored from this whole thing. But, like, you know, if the Sami Zayn Bloodline angle wasn't as hot as what it was, then yeah, sure, have Cody win the Rumble and have be the next guy. Like, that's cool. But this Bloodline stuff, this is an all-time level stuff. Like, and Roman needs this. Roman's legacy needs for this angle to end on such a high note, because like John Cena never had an angle like this that captivated this many people. Like Hogan, I guess you could, maybe, like, the Mega Powers thing. I mean, it was huge. Of course, Austin had McMahon. The Rock had Stone Cold. Brett had Shawn Michaels. There's all this stuff. Roman, I mean, unless you want to say Roman and Brock Lesnar, but is that a big time, all time rivalry? Like, I don't feel like it is. It doesn't get talked about in the way that those other ones get talked about. But if Sami Zayn were to, walk up the entrance ramp at WrestleMania holding both titles, having vanquished Roman Reigns, and Roman's historic legacy has now been toppled to make a brand new babyface star that the business hasn't seen and has been craving in ages, like, that's a hell of a way to wrap up an angle. And that's the perfect way to use it. And I feel like I just don't understand. I don't understand the motivation to insert Cody and to have him be the guy to topple Roman Reigns, unless it is as simple and as just disappointing as there's a whole business side of this thing that fans aren't taking into account, because why would they? They're just fans. It kind of makes it seem like, I wish just Triple H would come out and say, like, hey, Sami can't be the champion because our partners in Saudi Arabia, who pay us $50 million a year or whatever the fuck it is, don't want Sami Zayn to be champion. So that's why he's not going to be it.
Right.
And if that's the case, come out. He would get crucified for it online, but come out and say that, because then it lets the fans know, hey, like I said, like, doesn't matter who you get behind. We got other interests that we're trying to cater to. And so we'll pick our guys, and, we'll give you little teases here and there. But ultimately, like, this is the same company under Vince McMahon. We just got a different coat of paint on it. That's all.
Yeah, it's a little frustrating. So Cody's challenging Roman, obviously, but for which title?
From his Monday Night Raw thing, it sounds like it's both of them. From his promo on Monday Night Raw.
Yeah.
And let me so I guess we've already spent 20 minutes on the Bloodline Sami Zayn stuff. It's over. It's some of the best stuff on TV. Let's talk about, you mentioned it briefly, like Cody Rhodes coming into the Rumble at number 30 after having run all these vignettes. Look, I don't dislike Cody Rhodes. I'm reading Rick Rubin's new book. Rick Rubin, legendary music producer. He's got a book out called The Creative Act.
Oh, damn, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's a fantastic book on creativity. He has a line in the book, because I've been trying to figure out what is it about Cody that just doesn't do it for me. Like, why am I not interested in this guy? He should have everything. He's got all the tools. And Rick Rubin has a line in his book, and he says, if a project has 5 mistakes in it, it probably needs a little bit more work. If it has 8 mistakes in it, it's probably finished. And basically the idea that he's trying to get to is that, like, things can be wrong, and there can be, like, perfection can get in the way of what's more interesting. And I think just artistically, I am drawn to things that are a little bit more chaotic and a little bit more unpolished. And the thing about Cody Rhodes is he is completely polished. He is the perfect wrestler. Do you know what I mean? Like, you can tell he thinks about this so much, and he's such a perfectionist. He's so calculated. These promos, he never messes up. You can tell he is just like pouring over these promos over and over and over and over again. He's probably writing them down and not like rehearsing them, but like just the way he speaks. Like no normal person speaks like that. Like you have to have this stuff written down and have it. Rehearsed is a bad word, but you know what I mean? Like it's a performance aspect. And he has polished out all the rough edges about what being a professional wrestler is. And I think that that's what doesn't do it for me. And it's a compliment in a way, right? Because he's so fucking good at being a pro wrestler. Like his promo on Monday Night Raw was technically flawless. I mean, he had all these alliterations and rhymes, and he's referencing all this stuff. But I listen to this guy talk, and I'm like, it doesn't do it for me. And I think that that's why he got booed in AEW, is because the AEW crowd is probably a little bit more like me and kind of responds to the John Moxley flipping people off and fucking up during promos and doing all this stuff. There's none of that with Cody. It's just he has polished off all the rough edges to where he has become this absolutely perfect wrestler. And you heard him Monday night. He's trying to be the next John Cena. And that's just what doesn't – I wasn't interested in John Cena, and I'm not going to be interested in this guy. And also there's a part of me that's like, if you have to keep telling us, being the audience, that this guy's a big deal with all these vignettes, and he gets the double pyro, and he gets the coming up next on Monday Night Raw, and he has this huge thing, and you are trying to position him as the next big guy. If you have to keep shoving it down our throats, then it's because he isn't actually the next top guy. You know what I mean?
Right. I mean, and it's different too. Like, you hate to keep comparing to his father, but his father, like, you could see was viewed as like the everyman kind of guy, and that's not what Cody is. Cody is wrestling royalty, and I mean, even the first, the first spoken word line of his entrance is, "There's more than one royal family in wrestling," or whatever. Like, you just don't get that sense from him, and I think you're right. In a lot of ways about it. I mean, I do like Cody. I think his presentation and everything is great, but I'm just a little irked with the urgency in which they seem to want to put. I mean, I was fine with like put one title on him, sure, but this quick is still too quick. But like, I hadn't really thought about the fact that he's vying for both titles. Like, I don't know, man.
And I mean, all that could change, right? I mean, they could write it some kind of different way and have that. You brought up a good point bringing up his dad. You go listen to these. You go listen to the Hard Times promo from Dusty, which I think is the best promo of all time. Even though Dusty probably thought about it and had a little bit of lines he wanted to hit in that promo, all of it feels natural and it feels in the moment. And I think that's the big thing. Like, when I listen to Cody talk, none of it feels in the moment. It feels like it is so incredibly calculated. And like I said, so he has polished off all these edges. It's so perfect that I can't get behind it. It's like modern day pop music, right? These pop singers, like Ariana Grande is probably a perfect singer, you know what I mean? Like, technically, but I'm just not interested in her music at all.
Yeah. And
it's the same way I feel about Cody. And it took me reading that Rick Rubin book to be like, I hit that line and I was like, oh, okay. That explains me completely artistically, and that's why Cody Rhodes didn't do it for me. It's why John Cena never did it for me in his prime, like all these guys. So, and again, it's not a knock on Cody. And I just have a feeling that, in 6 or 7 months, the crowd reaction is going to be a little bit different.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, I don't think they'll turn on him as quickly as AEW did. He was too polished for AEW. AEW is a different style and a different presentation.
Yeah, thematically, those two, the WWE and AEW, are completely different. I just feel like the WWE crowd eventually is gonna come around on this guy, and maybe Cody is, part of Cody's problem is that maybe he's a natural heel. Like he's not a natural babyface like his dad was. He was he was 19 years old when he got signed to the WWE, right? Like
Right.
he never, you want to talk about paying your dues or anything like that. It's not like he was 25 years old, running up and down these towns, wrestling for $10 on a Saturday night. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
he's been the guy from the beginning. So I don't know. But then I say all that, but then Monday Night Raw, they cut to a reaction shot of the crowd, and there's a little kid that has the Cody Rhodes jacket on and like a fake neck tattoo. So like, maybe I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. I don't know.
Well, let's talk about the Rumble itself for a little bit. Like, was there anything that stood out for you?
I think you know what I'm gonna say.
Probably.
Gunther's a fucking star.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
I mean, this dude is talk about being able. When he came out at number one, I had a feeling I was like, I wonder if they're gonna let him go all the way to and like be one of the final four. I thought he'd be probably one of the final four. But then, yeah, his performance throughout the entire thing, and then like I said, Cody coming out at 30 just didn't make any sense. And I think the biggest thing that I didn't like about the men's rumble is that it had no drama. When it got to 29
Yeah.
and we ain't seen Cody yet, we go, okay, well, he's going to fucking win the thing. Like, there's no Sammy in it. And that was probably a good call on WWE's part, not having anybody from the Bloodline in it, because the second Sami Zayn is in that rumble, the audience's expectation is that he's going to win it.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't want to have what has happened in Rumbles past where the fans just turn on everything. So you keep him out of it. But like, why not just not run the vignettes and have Cody enter at 30? You have to do like one or the other. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But they had the vignettes, and then he's like, "Oh, I'm going to be in the Rumble," and then I don't even remember who was at 29. But then you're like, "Oh, okay, well, fuck, Cody's up next, and he's going to win it." But I thought Gunther looked really awesome. He passed all the tests. If Gunther's test for the Rumble was, let's have him stand beside dudes who were like bona fide legends and superstars in the WWE, and let's see if he fits the part. And I think that's what that stare down with Brock Lesnar was. Gunther fucking passed it with flying colors. He stood across from Brock Lesnar, and it looked like, oh, Gunther could whoop Brock's ass.
Yeah.
And that's all you have to test. And then, of course, Cody comes, and then it gets down to Cody and Gunther, and they just basically have a wrestling match, which was, kudos to Gunther's cardio. You can tell he's been hitting the gym, because I think he was in there for, almost an hour 20?
Yeah, it was a long-ass time.
That's a long fucking time.
I don't think it wrapped until they started at 7. It didn't wrap until 8:20, 8:25, something like that.
Yeah, and, just the Rumble overall, the entire pay-per-view, we give AEW shit all the time, so we got to give the WWE, we got to be fair. This fucking thing was over about 4 hours long, too damn long, too many fucking entrances, the damn Hardy performance, what the fuck was that?
Yeah, that was terrible. I do want to laugh at Seth Rollins for a second, because I turned to Jamie at one point and I said, Seth ain't going to be in the ring by the time the next person comes down. I said, Seth's 90 seconds are going to be up, and he's still going to be prancing to the ring. He was just taking his sweet-ass time to get down there. And she pointed this out. She was like, what was funny about that was, like, it seemed like the dudes were taking their sweet-ass time peacocking around. And she's like, the women were coming out with a fucking bullet and running toward the ring, which I thought was, a nice balance of changing it up.
Yeah, and we'll talk about the women's Rumble here probably after this. But the men's Rumble, I thought the Logan Paul Ricochet spot was awesome.
Yeah.
And I love Sheamus and McIntyre kind of teaming up and doing that stuff. I love Judgment Day. I as a faction, kind of controlling the pace of the Rumble there for the minute in the middle. And then, yeah, I mean, but the big takeaway really is Gunther. You know, he is.
Fucking
If you're looking for your
machine.
if you're looking for your next big heel that can challenge whoever is the champion for the title, because Roman Reigns is probably after WrestleMania going to work a part time schedule, I would assume.
Yeah.
Gunther's the guy. He's the guy for sure.
Let him get one of those belts off Cody if Cody gets both of them at Mania.
Yeah, and he has really restored the prestige to that Intercontinental title. That's always been the workhorse title of that company, and I mean he's the dude. Every test they gave him Saturday night, he passed with flying colors.
Yeah, for sure.
But the women's rumble was, I thought, 100 times better than the men's. I thought the women's rumble was absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, and this is totally on me, and because I haven't watched NXT in several years, I didn't know who a lot of the ladies were because they used a lot of NXT performers.
Yeah,
And then I get confused on some of the older ladies that are in the category because um, a lot of them honestly all look almost exactly alike to me.
well, I popped so hard for the Michelle McCool when she got announced and she was just in the crowd.
Yeah.
And she stood up and got because that was a fantastic spot. And once again, number one for the women's rumble was Rhea Ripley, and she went coast to coast.
Yeah.
And
that finish on that match was one of the highlights, if not the highlight in terms of execution for the night.
Absolutely. Unlike the men's rumble, I thought the women's rumble had some drama in it. You really didn't know who was going to win. You could have been Asuka with the new face paint and the new look. It could have been Liv Morgan. They could have went back to that. Could have been Rhea Ripley, and it was. That was kind of our prediction. I think for the rumble, just because Rhea seemed like the next person that the company was really going to push as the next big women's star. She has an incredible look that nobody's ever looked like before. Just her physicality, everything about her just screams superstar. But like you said, the women were there to work. I think they had a little bit of chip on their shoulder, like, hey, we're going to try to outdo the guys here. And I think they did. I've seen a lot of people be like, this was one of the best men's Royal Rumbles of all time. I don't know. I don't know what they watched. I don't think I watched the same thing Saturday night. If that was the case, then I thought the women knocked it out of the park.
Yeah, same for me. Yeah, and part of it just goes back to the fact that Ripley lasted the whole time and then executed that move at the end to get the win. I don't know that you could have designed a better ending for that one.
Yeah, and though we'll jump ahead to Monday Night Raw here. She comes out on Monday and she challenges Charlotte Flair for her title. So we know it's going to be Rhea and Charlotte. But Rhea Ripley did not come out with a Judgment Day, which I thought
that's a good point.
I thought was so odd. She has been positioned as basically the de facto leader of Judgment Day, and I think it would be a really cool visual to have her be front and center and have the dudes be in the background. And she is the leader. We talked about this, I think, a couple of weeks ago. I was like, is Finn Balor's going to be positioned as, getting a big push this coming year? He kind of needs to separate from the Judgment Day because he's not the star of that group. It's Rhea Ripley. She's the leader. So I thought that was just a missed opportunity, not having Rhea come out and having Judgment Day follow behind her. Not that they even have to say anything. They just need to stand behind her as she's front and center because she is the star. So for whatever reason, they didn't do that. But Rhea and Charlotte should be one hell of a matchup. And then I guess we'll have to see who Bianca Belair, her WrestleMania opponent, is. Do we, is it going to be an Asuka? Is it going to be? It seems like Becky and Bayley are going to stretch their rivalry all the way out to WrestleMania. So, we'll see who Bianca's WrestleMania opponent's going to be.
Yeah, I kind of thought they'd switch back to a Becky and Bianca at some point, but I think you're right. Right now, it seems like the Becky and Bayley thing's going to keep going. So I think the Ripley and Flair was probably the right call. Ripley and Bianca could be cool.
Yeah, I think I would have went Ripley and Bianca. I think that there's so much money in those two women. But a lot of people have made this point. Bianca Belair is on her John Cena shit right now, so like she's unbeatable. So maybe you don't want to have Bianca lose just yet till it really means something.
I think it could be cool though for Ripley to get her first shot or her first. It kind of seems like she's poised to get the title to get it off of somebody like Flair. I think that's It's more of a statement in terms of all time.
Yeah,
Like she could get it off of Bianca and it'd be cool, and it'd be honestly a better match than with Charlotte. Maybe I don't know, man. People shit on Charlotte, but like Charlotte still fucking got it, man.
yeah. Charlotte's still incredible in the ring, and
Yeah,
yeah, you're probably right. You're probably hitting on the thing that to make Rhea the next big thing in that division, she needs to grab the title off somebody that has a legacy and a legendary last name too.
yeah. I
Just like
think it'd mean
Rhea
a little
Flair.
more.
Yeah, so
And
you're probably right.
Charlotte still like is really fucking good in the ring. Like disregard presentation, disregard everything else. She's still in fucking great shape and still goes hard in the ring.
Yeah, she's still trying to get her footing being a babyface because I think it's so it's still alien to her.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, like you said, she's always been fantastic in the ring. So she's on the Mount Rushmore of women's wrestlers of all times for sure.
Yeah. Well, let's get into a little bit. We're already at like the 36-minute mark. Let's get into a couple of the matches. We already, touched on the Bloodline KO and Roman thing. The lights out match, we finally figured out what that was going to be.
Oh my
Um,
god.
I thought the look of it was pretty cool to start out, but overall, I thought it was kind of a disaster. And then I didn't realize that they fucked up the Uncle Howdy ending so bad until like I got on Twitter because like from the angle that they showed on TV, it didn't look like he missed that bad. Like right, and like I honestly didn't notice that he even missed. I was like I couldn't really tell, but I saw a couple of different angles on Twitter. I'm like, well, he missed the motherfucker by 2 feet.
Yeah. Yeah, it
Like
was
didn't even get an arm across him or anything. Like it was bad.
um,
And then this is the other thing that confuses the shit out of me. So Uncle Howdy like helps him out in the end or whatever, right? And then is quote unquote on his side. 2 fucking weeks ago, Uncle Howdy put the Sister Abigail on Bray in the middle of the fucking ring. So where is he supposed to be? Where does he stand? What's happening here?
that's a good question. I wish they would explain it. I'm out. I'm just out. I'm not. I will. I'll talk about it on this podcast. I'll watch it, but I'm not gonna get emotionally invested one way or the other. I was so happy when Bray Wyatt came back, and just where he was at Extreme Rules to where he's at now. I mean, I honestly couldn't care less about this story. I don't know what the fuck is happening. I don't like. It's who is like why. This is what I'm saying. This is what makes me so not mad, but I'm so damn confused because you watch something like the Bloodline angle and you go, my God, this is so fantastic. This is like all time level stuff. But then somehow, I guess the same people responsible for that are also the same people responsible for this Uncle Howdy Bray Wyatt storyline. And it's like, what? Okay, what? How does that happen?
Yeah,
It's kind of like when you hear people who are like, there's a band that like you really like somebody's like, oh, I really like the Strokes. And you're like, okay, that's a cool little indie rock band. And then you hear them pulling into work and they got Nickelback blasting out the damn speakers. And you're like, well, how the fuck is those two things? It's like, you can't be the same person. How do you like both of those things? They're so completely opposite. And so it's like that. We're like, I don't even know I thought Uncle Howdy is Uncle Howdy Bray or is he not Bray? Is he a completely different person? Who like what the fuck is happening?
well, yeah. The other thing that I thought would have some sort of payoff would be as Bray was making his entrance. And I want to circle back to that in a half second. As Bray was making his entrance, on the left side of the screen in the crowd at one point there was somebody wearing the pig mask,
Oh yeah,
right?
and then the
And,
vulture
and
thing
then
and all
and
that
then
stuff.
there was a vulture one, and I was like, so
Yeah,
there's going to be some sort of payoff for that. And if they did it, I fucking missed it. I do want to shout out though the LA Night entrance on Friday night. I thought was funny as shit.
yeah, that was good.
So shout out to that. But yeah, this one just did not do it for me at all. I was let down. And we don't have to spend any more time on it because I know it's going to just piss you off.
Well, and two, LA Knight, you want to talk about being a dipshit. Like, you're going to have a pitch black match, but then you're going to get trunks that damn illuminate in the dark. It was like, well, that don't make, okay, so you're actually going to try to fight this dude and try to like whoop his ass, but then you're going to put on something that lets him see where the fuck you're at in the damn darkness. Like, that don't make no damn sense. And then I guess Bray Wyatt had some face paint, but then he had another mask, but the other mask is not the Fiend mask. But now when he puts this mask on, like, he's impervious to pain and becomes like the fucking Leatherface from Texas Chainsaw Massacre and just walks forward. Like, I'm out. I don't give a shit. I will remember Bray Wyatt as being the leader of the Wyatt family and having Eric Rowan on one side and Luke Harper and the rocking chair and the follow the buzzards. And that's just how I'm going to forever remember this dude. And I'm not going to let anything that he does now going forward ruin that character for me, because that was such a special time, me watching wrestling. I thought that was the coolest thing ever. And so out of respect for what he has done in the past, I'm going to completely emotionally detach myself from this version of Bray Wyatt. I'll still talk about it on the podcast, but Royal Rumble was the end for me. I do not care what happens going forward.
Yeah, and I'll say this, and we can move on. He did say, I guess in something leading up to the Rumble, one of the interviews, and I saw it in a couple of different places, that he said that the Fiend died when a year ago or 2 years, whenever he got released, the Fiend was officially dead at that point. So I don't know. He did the whole Firefly Funhouse thing with the red sweater last week or week before that. So whatever this character, like you said, it's not the Fiend. It's going to be something different. But so yeah, we can move on from that. The Bianca Belair versus Alexa Bliss. What were your thoughts on that?
I mean, it's basically a squash match as much as you can do it, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you just try to give Bianca her win and put this Bianca Alexa Bliss thing to the side, and then fucking, I guess, Bray Wyatt and his cult of weird fucking people in masks is going to get back and get Alexa Bliss too. Again, I don't, whatever. Okay, good luck to you.
Yeah.
Bianca's badass though. She's cool. So
Yeah, for sure. Well, let's switch gears a little bit and get into AEW. And I don't want to spend a ton of time on each one because we're getting close to the end of the hours. But John Moxley, Hangman Page started off. What a way to start a show! These guys beat the ever loving hell out of each other for 20 minutes.
Yeah, and it has to be. I saw some people be like, "Oh, why did they let Moxie get the win over Hangman?" Well, this is not going to be the end of their feud, right?
Well, I thought everything leading up to this was like, okay, well, this is going to be it, but it's clearly not at the end of it. Like,
no, because Hangman beat the shit out of him, and Moxley just pulled out a wrestling move and got by the skin of his teeth, right? So it kind of makes me think this is either leading to like a last man standing match or some kind of lights out match. Yeah. Where these two are finally going to put their differences aside, because you even saw Hangman talking shit at the end. Although I will say, when Hangman got to the back, I think if I was a producer, I'd be like, "Hey, next time you're one of the baby faces here, one of the top baby faces in the company. Next time somebody like mushes you in the face, give it back to them. Don't let somebody protect your character a little bit. You know what I mean? Like, you're this kid. It doesn't matter if there's fucking 3 guys in the ring. Like, if somebody does that to you out there, you give it back to them. We'll let the referees get involved and figure it out. We'll send more security down there if we have to." That was the only thing that kind of, I was like, oh, a little bit. I think Claudio or maybe Yuta did it or whatever.
Yeah.
But no, I think Hangman and Moxley have tremendous chemistry together. And like you said, those, again, I think we mentioned a couple weeks ago, kudos to whoever has fucking figured out the mic situation in the ring, because we can hear all these damn forearms now and these chops. And these dudes are really laying it in. And you can hear it. It comes through the television screen how hard these dudes are hitting each other.
Yeah, for sure. The Acclaimed was next with some local guys. Not much to cover here except for the fact that the Guns finally get their shot at the Acclaim next week. That was determined by Billy at the end of the segment. He said, "Fuck it, I'm tired of dealing with all of y'all. Y'all can fight it out next week."
Yeah, I mean, it was I guess it was a fine segment. I don't know why the Acclaim needed the match against a bunch of nobodies.
Yeah.
Feels like you could have just like done this in a segment. And then we just praised the them miking up the ring, but then this segment was also plagued by audio issues and the fucking mic goes out. So I mean, yeah.
Yeah, it's second week in a row where Mike has just fucking stopped working.
I don't yeah. Maybe they gotta get some more durable mics because these motherfuckers in AEW slam the shit out them mics when they throw them down.
Yeah.
They throw them down so hard. But yeah, I mean, I don't know where this goes. Does it go with Billy Gunn turning on the Acclaim and going back with the Suns? I think Austin and Colton have a lot of potential. They also have one of the best entrance themes in AEW. Just the Western entrance song that they have is just it's so cool. um, so yeah, I mean, I don't know. Does it feel like the Acclaimed have lost maybe just a little bit of steam from where they were at? I mean, they were at such a high level a couple months ago, so maybe
Yeah.
it's to be
I mean,
expected.
maybe a little, but like it could have been the crowd, you know? There were still a ton of fucking people there though that were all in it.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, it just feels like I don't know from where the Acclaim were at when they were working with Swerve and Keith to now. Just seems like a little bit of a drop off, but maybe that, like I said, maybe that's to be expected. It kind of ebbs and flows.
Yeah. Well, next was Takeshita, Brian Cage. Um, Again, we're just gonna gush about Takeshita. And I like that they used him in another angle, in this episode as well.
Yeah,
Um, so I definitely think that they're going to start the push on him probably sooner rather than later. I would think, right?
I mean the push is it started a couple weeks like when he came back, right?
Right,
I mean they're just slowly building him up as a top babyface, which I think is good because they don't have a lot of Asian stars on the roster, right?
right.
So, and I've always said this, one of the gripes I had about WWE for the longest time is I was like, it's world wrestling entertainment, but it doesn't have a lot of world in it. It's kind of just strictly American. So I think it's cool. And Takeshita has all the fucking physical tools. Looks like a middle linebacker. Is believable that he can beat somebody up. He knows just enough English to get his point across. And even when he doesn't, it's cool to hear him like get pissed off in Japanese. Yeah, and Brian Cage, what a great spot for him since he's come back too. And maybe they're doing a little bit of this because his name is being kicked around on the rumor mill as potentially going to WWE. So they're trying to give him some stuff to entice him to stay. There's just a great utility in having a guy like Brian Cage who is that big and that athletic, can work with a lot of the more athletic guys on the roster that AEW has. So he's fantastic as well.
So what do you think about them giving Takeshita a match with MJF next week?
I think it's good. It was positioned weirdly because MJF comes out, try to screw over Danielson. Takeshita comes out. They go to the back and brawl. MJF, Takeshita, Renee. I love the use of Renee, by the way, who just fucking pops in. I was like, I'm getting word from the back. I'm just going to do it here because it adds like an element of surprise, right? And she's part of the broadcast team. You would have to think that she's got Tony Khan's ear and she can just break news like that.
Yeah.
So they do that, but then they go to a commercial break and they come back and they throw it to what's clearly a pre-taped package with MJF and Roosh, where MJF is in completely different clothing and it doesn't seem at all like riled up. What just happened. But like, it doesn't make sense for it to be a pre-tape because the only reason that they made the Roosh match was because Danielson beat Thatcher. Do you know what I mean? Like, so it would have to anyway. it was weird and odd, and somebody should have caught that. But maybe they did catch it, and they were like, "Fuck it, it's 45 minutes till showtime. Well, they ain't shit we can do, so just let it roll." I mean, we both worked in television; we know how that shit works. So
Yeah.
sometimes you just gotta roll with it.
Fuck it, we'll do it live.
Fuck it. But I think it's good. It's good to have Takeshita to be positioned next to these guys who are big stars, because he's only going to get the rub from that.
Yeah. Well, so what did you think about the Danielson versus Timothy Thatcher match?
I loved it. I fucking love Timothy Thatcher, and I don't know why AEW didn't sign this guy when they had a chance. He has. You want to talk about having a unique look and a unique move set? I think somebody made the joke on Twitter. He's the most British looking, not British dude that's ever existed. Right? Like, and he made.
There was something very unsettling about that man.
Yeah, I mean, he makes you look at him, right? Just his physical appearance. You're like, who the fuck is that guy? And that, like I said, that's something you can't teach. And you want to talk about a unique moveset. You know, when all these guys nowadays are doing high flying spots and 450s and dives, he's just, nope. I'm going to grab an ankle and I'm going to work the ankle, or I'm going to grab your fingers and I'm going to work the fingers. I'm not going to wear any fucking knee pads. It's a lot like Gunther, right? I think that a lot of Gunther's appeal in WWE is that he is outside the norm of what a modern day wrestler looks like, and the way a modern day wrestler moves in the ring. And so I think Thatcher is a lot like that. And, he's over in Japan and Pro Wrestling Noah right now. So I don't even know if they could sign him, but I would sign Thatcher to a full-time deal, put him on the roster. I thought these two had outstanding chemistry together. Not like, it wasn't the Danielson Bandito match from a few weeks ago, but
Right.
it still served its purpose. And you saw Danielson work from underneath a little bit, the way he did against Cage, because obviously he's nursing that shoulder injury in the story. So, I thought this was fantastic.
So I'm going to be 100% honest. I fast forwarded the Cargill and Red Velvet match because I knew who was going to win, and it was getting late. So I didn't see it. But what were your thoughts on that?
I mean, it's fine. Cargill has
more of the same.
It's more of the same. I mean, I don't know. They keep doing this weird thing with Jade Cargill where, like, she's clearly a heel, but then she celebrates and she goes and picks up her daughter and they walk to the back. And it's like, okay, am I supposed to feel sympathy for this woman, or am I supposed to root for her, or am I supposed to be scared of her, or like, what is she supposed to be? And I think the only reason she has the TBS title is because they don't know what else to do with her. And I mean, just looking at her, she does have a charisma about her. But it hasn't, has it translated? I don't know if there's been anything. Has she done anything noteworthy with that title since she's had it? I can't even remember.
They haven't really positioned anybody against her that would have a shot, really. I mean, they haven't put anybody like, they could put, granted they got these people in other storylines, but like, why not like Ruby Soho or somebody? Like, I mean, I don't understand. Like, I get it. Like, Jade looks the part.
Right.
But at some point, you got to put more than just, and I'm not saying Red Velvet's a scrub, but like, you got to put somebody with a little more oomph up against her, right?
But it could be one of those things where, we talk about the AEW audience all the time, and that fan base being drawn to people who are really good professional wrestlers. And so maybe their fear is that if they put Jade Cargill in like this long standing program where she has to give a bunch of promos back and forth and she has to do these, 20-minute matches on the regular, that she kind of gets exposed a little bit, and the mystique and the shine starts to go off. And then when that happens, what do you do with her at that point? It's a little bit like Hook, right? That's why Hook's not wrestling in 20-minute matches, because he ain't ready to do it yet.
Right.
And, obviously from all the reports, Jade's putting in a lot of work. Obviously she's working with Bryan Danielson. There's not a better person that you could learn under, but, These things take time. That's why a lot of these wrestlers, it takes over a decade to really get good at it, because there's so many things, there's so many nuances, right? Like when to speed up, when to slow down, things like that in the ring that just don't. It doesn't come naturally. It takes time. You have to be seasoned, and she's just not there yet, which is why a lot of these matches are 5 to 7 minutes, and she hits the signature jaded move, which looks awesome, by the way. She did an awesome job. I thought it was a very creative way for them to get into it Wednesday night. But yeah, that's kind of it. She's a lot like Goldberg in a sense, but the thing is that the wrestling audience's tastes have changed completely over the years. This is not 1997 anymore. People, especially the AEW crowd, they root for the Danielson versus Thatcher matches, the Danielson versus Bandito stuff. That's what gets them out of the seats. So I don't know. I don't know what you do with her. She's clearly, if you can figure out how to use her, she can be a big star. She has a lot of crossover mainstream appeal, but you got to figure out how to get there.
Yeah. So let's finish out with Samoa Joe versus Darby Allin. I mean, do I wish Darby Allin would have kept the title? Yeah, I do. But do I understand why Joe gets it? Of course.
Yeah.
And I mean, they beat the hell out of each other last night. And then the finisher there on the bare wood was fucking brutal. I mean, it was brutal from the get-go.
Yeah.
But yeah, just a showstopper for you start out the show with Jon Moxley and Adam Page, and finish with Samoa Joe versus Darby Allin. That's pretty fucking good night of wrestling.
I mean, when Darby came out in the sweatshirt that was just had thumbtacks all over it. I mean, like I said, this dude, he's so good at knowing what that character is. He's got it such down pat, because that's such. When you saw that, you're like, of course Darby Allin would do that. Like, he just doesn't give a shit, and he will go to any lengths. In terms of like baby faces fighting from underneath, I don't know if there's a better person in wrestling that's better at that than what Darby Allin is, and that's a skill. Fucking the Rock and Roll Express made a career out of getting people to cheer for you as you get your ass kicked. It is a skill set that when you master it, you can get any audience anywhere in the world invested in your match. And he is as good at it as anybody. There is a reckless abandonment to fucking Darby Allin that I have never seen in any kind of wrestler before. This dude will take any bump. The fucking suicide dive that Joe just walked away from and Darby went through the table.
Oh my God.
Bro, I don't know who is fucking crazy enough to do that.
I meant to kind of earmark at one point and call it out some attention. I don't know any other way to describe it than they were in like the far right corner of the ring, like away from the hard cam. And Samoa Joe picked Darby up and just flung him over the ring like a goddamn rag doll.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you remember the spot I'm talking about?
Yeah, is it where he like put the steps up and Darby hit the steps with his knees and then flew over the barricade? Yeah.
It's fucking brutal.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if something went wrong or if Darby was like, fuck it, I'm going to sell the fuck out of this and I'm just going to flop. Like, it was insane.
Yeah, I think that's just the bump. I think that's just the bump he was trying to do. He was like, I'm going to hit it. I'm going to hit my back on the barricade and I'm going to go over. It's impressive. It's impressive stuff, man. And Joe is the perfect guy to do that to him. And in retrospect, now seeing the end of this match and Samoa Joe going over, a lot of people online were like, "Oh, Darby just beat him the first time because they wanted Darby to have the TNT title when they went over to Japan to do the Great Muta retirement match, and they wanted Darby to walk out with the title." By the way, not a bad reason to give somebody a title, to give them more world recognition. And it makes sense that Darby would have beat him at the first time, and you get the big pop in Seattle. And this makes sense too. And I love that earlier in the night they ran a little vignette package, and Darby was like, "Hey, this is it. This is the last time. Whoever wins, the other person's not getting a rematch. This is the end of our story." And so you give you give the king of television his TNT title back, and you let Samoa Joe run with it. I will say that I am not interested in a Wardlow Samoa Joe round 2 whatsoever. Um, and I don't know, nothing against Wardlow, but
I totally forgot that he cut his hair.
yeah, and I mean, seeing what Darby has done with the title in just a short amount of time he's had it, right? I mean, he's main evented, I think, every single Dynamite since he's had it, if not damn near every single one. Just putting on fantastic match after fantastic match. His short reign was already more important than what Wardlow's reign was, and Wardlow had the title for months at this point. I don't even know how long he had it. It was a long time for sure. But
Yeah, it was a while. I don't think they'll put it back on Wardlow this quick.
I don't think so either. I think you let Samoa Joe really take it and kind of run with it. And similar to the way that they've done the U.S. title, well, not the U.S. title, but the Intercontinental title over in WWE with Gunther. Like, you let a mid-card heel who's sort of a monstrous force just kind of take the title and beat up a bunch of dudes. And then you can fantasy book who you want to take the title off Samoa Joe. Is it a Jungle Boy who had a promo Wednesday night who said, "Hey, I'm going to be a champion in 23, but I'm going to be a singles. I'm going to do it by myself"? Do we see a Jack Perry take down the king of television at some point? I just want to see good matches from Samoa Joe, and I mean he's going to deliver them. And this one Wednesday night was just fantastic. Like you said, the big muscle buster on the exposed wood. I mean,
Jesus Christ.
just just brutal level stuff. Samoa Joe also got busted open, but it looked like the hard way, where the fucking
he wasn't ready for it.
Yeah, the edge of the table caught him in the eyebrow. Yeah. So
that was. I wondered like if he got real pissed off about that because like he wasn't ready for that. Darby just came at him, and the table wasn't where it was supposed to be yet.
Hey, I don't know. I mean, sometimes shit happens like that. So hopefully he wasn't too pissed off about it. And I mean, it fucking looked great. So
yeah, well, you step in the ring with Darby, you got to have your head on a fucking swivel anyway.
Yeah, and I hope they keep this momentum with Darby going, because I think this short little reign that he had has really elevated himself to where, I think the litmus test for any wrestler is, can the fans envision the world title at some point being around your waist? And I think with Darby, I think that answer is yes. He'd be an underdog for sure, but he has so much fight as an underdog, and just the willingness to use your body as a weapon like Darby has, I think is the sort of the great equalizer for him. So yeah, I could see at some point down the line. I'm not saying it's going to happen soon, but and I'm not even going to say that Darby would necessarily need a long title reign with the world title, but I could hear and new AEW World Champion Darby Allin like that. It makes sense.
Yeah, I wouldn't be mad at it. I mean, anytime this year seems unreasonable.
Yeah,
but sometime down the road, wouldn't hurt my feelings.
No, I mean he just has just some of those spots, man. Just Jesus Christ.
Yeah. Good time, but not for a long time.
Not for a long time. I hope he's got a massage therapist or some kind of shit. I hope he's got a chirp wheel at the fucking house that he gets on it afterwards, or one of them massage guns, or an ice bath or something. Because he looked a little bit bigger last night too. I don't know, maybe it was his camera. It looks like he's putting on a little bit of muscle mass too, which would be good for him.
That'd be interesting. I mean, even if he did, he's still not going to be that big of a dude.
No. But he's fantastic. He's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah. Well, man, I think that's going to get us for the week. Unless you got anything else you want to touch on.
Nope. We are in the throes of WrestleMania season.
Yeah, got to point at that fucking sign.
Yeah, I mean,
somebody didn't point at the sign Monday night during a segment, and I told Jamie that they broke the rules.
Well, they more than made up for it with Cody Rhodes' promo, where the camera conveniently switched angles to where the WrestleMania sign was always behind Cody when he was talking about Roman Reigns. So you're going to get enough of that WrestleMania sign. Don't worry.
Yeah. Well, man, that's going to get it for us. follow us on Twitter. Follow us on Instagram at Alabama Slam Pod. And, tweet at us, holler at us, give us a shout out. We'll try to, I did get the prompt of the week going again this week. We'll try to keep that thing going if we can remember it. If you got any questions, holler at us on Twitter and we'll try to answer them for you. And we'll talk to y'all next week, man.
Later, guys.